Speak of Eurovision fans, my name is Ewan, my pronouns are he, him, and joining me today is,
International he, him pronoun user of mystery, Angus.
and of course, if you recognize us, then you'll know that this is that Eurovision site, Eurovision with a slice of life. We're back with another look back at this year's national final season. Today we are talking about the greatest national final in the history of the Eurovision Song Contest. It's the mother of NFs. It's in several ways. It is Lithuania and their premium, amazing. This is, but in case you haven't wondered, this is just going to be me fawning over Lithuania and Angus shaking his head. Yes, it's Lithuania. Are you excited to be back, Angus? Because we were on the same one last year, weren't we?
I mean, yeah, obviously. It was something this year. It was something.
It was definitely a selection show, and there might have been a bit of hyperbole in what I've said, but still. So last year we had some we liked the show, but we had issues with it. They took up nothing that we've said, so but let's face it, why would they take what we say? Because we have terrible opinions, and we're just
Well, they
random
did the
people on YouTube.
one thing they did do is exactly the opposite of what we said, which was the name change.
Yeah, yeah. So last year they had the multiple rounds. They slimmed it down to the single round. So they had five semifinals. So originally Lithuania had announced that they might have four semifinals. They might have five. They're not sure yet. Um, so they had two from each show qualify into a 10-song final. In that, they then had the top three qualify into a super final. So this was very rare because Lithuania usually they don't have super finals. They also don't have um, small amounts of qualifiers. Usually it's quite a bit. So the fact they only had two of the eight were quite a big change, and with the super final itself, because that was also 100% televote. What were your thoughts with these changes, Angus?
I mean, it's worth experimenting. On the one hand, to see what makes for the best show in your country and what makes just for the best result, whatever you exactly want the result to be as a broadcaster. I'm I'm not a big fan of a super final, especially if it's televote only, because you get usually the compromise answer most of the time. We've seen that a lot in Iceland, where we can really see that as a pattern, which is fine, but it's not really what I at least tune into national finals or Eurovision for usually. But I don't think that it led to a bad result. There were a lot of songs that didn't make it to the final that I really enjoyed, but there were a few songs in the final I also liked, so can't complain too much, I suppose. Question mark. How about you?
I don't like change. That's a lie. I love change. I don't like change when I disagree with what they're doing. And
Ewan's a conservative confirmed.
I'm a Eurovision conservative. This is well established. Um, Personally, I'm sort of the same with super finals. I think they only really work in really big things like Sanremo, when you have 28 songs. Like, because you're going to end up with some weird results there. But 10 songs, I mean, you just need an actual better voting system because there's something that is consistently wrong with Lithuania, and it's not just Lithuania. There's quite a lot of other selections, Germany, where they're doing the whole combining into the Eurovision vote system. So instead of like respecting the fact that Shower got 110 points, they actually got 12 and 10 televotes rather than X thousands of them, and combine it into Eurovision style, which is just silly because it's not Eurovision. There's only 10 songs. It doesn't work. You don't have enough points. The whole thing is just broken. Um, what I do think is really amazing though is Lithuania always every year has that thing where it's like, okay, X is going to win, X is going to win, and almost every single time they never win. What I find so amazingly funny is this year was Silvester Belt and the Roop who were two of the super finalists. Um, they neither of them would have won because you would have had completely left field Shower winning if you just kept the old system up, which is just so amazingly Lithuanian. Is I love because that was my second favorite in that in of the finalists there. Wasn't my absolute favorite, but if we just quickly touch on it, what were your favorites in the final, Angus?
Okay, so in the final, I would say Shower was my number one. It's like emotional, powerful. The melody in the chorus is just absolutely beautiful and sort of hits that borderline post-rock stuff. I also think it would have been a lovely through line of like it's a bit more popularly accessible while still sort of being in the sunlight line. So the sort of would have been from Latvia then, but like, sort of the Baltic sound, a certain Baltic sound to rock music that would have remained. Uh Salvarinis, I mean, I just love me some drama. Pluie de Comet underwhelmed me based on what I expected beforehand, but it's also a gorgeous, stripped back, electronic kind of song with a bunch of different elements. Queens of Roses always deserve a shout out. I mean, if any of them are listening, I'm sorry for saying the following thing, but you were endearingly bad this year. But that I mean a complimentary, like it was a really fun song, a really fun performance.
It was definitely
Uh
one of their like most fun attempts, which
yes,
says something because
washing machine.
yes.
And then, after that, sort of like Il Senso were pleasing to the ears, to my own shock. VB Gang were fun and grating in a scooter kind of way. Ice the personally let me down, but it was fine. Monica Maria also sort of falls in there. Sylvester's song is good. I didn't like his performance personally, but we'll get into that more later. The group should not have competed because the song looks better outside of a contest setting, and I'm forgetting two songs now from the final I haven't mentioned, and I think that says everything about it.
No, you mentioned them all.
Are they all 10? Well, then said something about all 10. Look at that.
Yeah. For me, like obviously I'm the biggest Lithuanian fan in the fandom. And annoyingly, like so for it. I only actually like properly disliked one song, and that was Monica Maria. Um, on Love You Starting Tomorrow. It was just dull. It was really dull, and I don't get why it got any jury votes. There were a couple that disappointed me going into the final. Like I felt there was a bit more. There could have been more chaos, for lack of a better word. It was just you always have these ones that are like a little bit weird and think like why the hell are they in this final? But they're still like ridiculously fun, and it wasn't there. My personal favorite was Plus de Comet. Because be careful, it was classy, it was jazzy, it was a little bit shit as well. Which, which you just need something that's a little bit shit in Lithuania to like because that's my vibe. Um, Once again, my third favorite has won in Lithuania, which is for the fourth year in a row, which was Silvester Belt's Luktelk. I think overall, though, it probably was the most sensible song to win. I love Simple Joy. The lyrics, they're offensively simplistic, but they they work. It's the same with a lot of Roop's lyrics, and I think you are right there. Like it's not good in a competitive nature. But yeah, I think of all the songs in the entire show, Look Talent is the only one that really has any chance of winning whatsoever. Um, but speaking of which, how do you think that Look Talent's actually going to do in Malmo?
I know a lot of people will be hyping up this song, both in quality and in result, and I don't think that's necessarily unfair. But what I will always say for songs like this, I will give fans a warning because there's some things you need to be aware of. I'm not saying it's the exact same song, I'm not saying it's the exact same performer, but think back to like your other boppy twink adjacent performed songs. Think of, for example, Benjamin and Grosso, that underperformed at the contest compared to fan expectations for the most
Sorry,
part.
are you trying to suggest that he's anyway even like adjacent to the twink pop?
No, I'm saying to it's an well, it's an electronica pop
It's just more having
banger.
that word associated with him. It's like they feel like they should be like
Yeah,
kilometers and kilometers
but you
apart.
do also get my point, I think. Like,
Kind of.
like the high mark of something like that is something that goes into a different direction again, which what was like Belgium 2015, which finished fourth. Um, I'm saying like this sort of like this line of like you have different lines of different things. There's a lot of different factors. I'm just saying like just pure pop songs can do very well in Eurovision. See Loreen winning, but they can also really underperform in expectations if they fail to connect. Um, Dimly lit staging, which Luktelk does have, which makes sense for the song, can make viewers fail to connect to an entry, means they won't vote for it. And to me personally, this song needs a lot of attitude in the stage. Like at least the staging they went for, the dancing they went for. There's a lot of attitude that's necessary. And I did not get that personally from the way Sylvester was performing.
I get that. There because it's got such a strong, like deep beat, there needs to be that replicated throughout everywhere, even if it's just more of like splash of like color during it or more effect with the dancers. Because I think it was great, but it's by no means a Eurovision winner. Um
No,
I
if he
mean
practices
I
enough,
said it's a Eurovision winner, but let's face it, I will hyperbolize at everything they will ever send. But there is a chance of it there, but they need to work it. There's a chance that they can have their best ever result. Maybe not necessarily win, but they need to put the effort into it.
with the current staging, they could get a top 10, I
Mhm.
think, if Sylvester gets under the belt. Because it
Absolutely, that was an absolute embarrassment.
it went by accident, but it's out there now. Um, the thing is, like, if you, I don't think he felt completely comfortable with his choreo at the national final, or there was something, but it didn't feel quite like it completely gelled together. And this is a song, like the song itself is very polished, and that mean like, and it's not like an ironic kind of song. So also the performance needs to be very polished, or you can run into issues both with the televote and with the juries.
Mhm.
Because we are going to have seasoned performers also with poppy songs this year that maybe they'll perform better, maybe they won't, but that's something we don't know until we get to the rehearsals. But it's something you need to keep in mind if you're the delegation.
Yeah, because it's not even a case of they only had like 1 week and they were in the fifth semi-final. Like Sylvester qualified from the first semi-final. They knew that it was going to be on a bigger stage. I don't think it had been announced at that point that it was going to be in the Svitoris Arena. They were going back to a full arena show, but there was still enough time to like become more comfortable with the bigger, because it worked really well in the semi-final when it was with this semi-final. This TV studio is a really small space. So I really hope that like, they are doing what you're saying is like making it a lot more comfortable, because I feel like this could struggle next to the UK, because the UK is the closest that it's going to be with mid-tempo mid-tempo swing pop, let's face it. And it's also that's in English, as much as I love the fact that Lithuania are sending things in Lithuanian again. Um, although Alexander might dominate it, and I do worry that, yeah, exactly what you're saying. With the comments on staging though, we did see the difference between the semi-final and the final. How did you feel with watching that compare for the entire show? Because the semi-finals were all pre-recorded, and then you went into the live final in a big arena. How did you feel like the transition was made? Do you think there was a good production quality in the semi-finals? Was good production quality in the finals? What were your overall thoughts?
The production quality was fine. Like now looking back, and I will admit it had slipped my mind while I was rewatching the songs. It wasn't particularly noticeable to me. Now that you say it, it does make sense with how some performers looked more comfortable in the pre-recorded versions, and others did need the live aspect to it. Um, and for some, it didn't matter at all. I would argue, but it was fine. I'm not necessarily a fan of pre-recorded semifinals. Like but it's whatever. I think the Lithuanian broadcaster did an okay job. Like I didn't notice any glaring issues, which is, as long as you don't have that, you're already doing better than half of the Eurovision broadcasters. And you know what? Let's comment that. That being said, um, yeah, just the changing of venues, especially when if it wasn't necessarily clear where they were going to be, is not it's not ideal for anyone because something that works on a small stage might not work on a big stage and vice versa, and you might not have enough time to prepare that different staging, which we've seen, for example, in last year. We saw really that like from round to round, we saw the stagings change and like the performers also talk about why they were changing stuff and how they were changing it, which was a great look behind the scenes, but also really helped performers find their footing and find their song, and which is also how we now got with the final version of the 2023 song. That was like an evolution throughout the rounds, which didn't seem pre-planned at least, and that was now missing here. I would
Because I
say.
feel like when you have the good thing about that three stages is that you have a clear transition. There's a chance to grow, but it's going from like especially the ones it's noticeable in the like the last semi-final, the jump between like the Roop and the Queen of Roses from like that semi-final into the final. They've had like a week and a half to prepare. Um, that's really not enough time. When you think of like Estonia, they all like it's known it will be hosted in the arena. I can't think of one off the top of my head. There's a good gap between of a month between that. There's chance to prepare to like scale up, and it's done to such quality because it's not like in the final, they're not like Lithuania isn't putting money into this. Like the final, it's got the cash, it's got the emphasis, but it's like it's not giving them enough time. You're doing it in the middle of February. Why not just give them a few more weeks and just do it in March? Um, yeah, I personally, I really don't like the pre-recorded aspect of it. I think it's fine sometimes, but at times it does just feel very pre-recorded. But in the final, it felt a lot more fun, like dynamic. There was a lot more excitement when they were interviewing the audience, like who do you want to win? Like you can feel that hype in the air because there was also a lot of hype about like these singers because like we were absolutely obsessed with the Root and Sylvester. So it's like you're not getting that in the pre-recorded ones, and it does disappoint me. But I think we're moving on to topic the next topic. What would you change for the future?
Well, change your name back. Step number one.
Oh,
Honestly, just
I
go
think they
back.
should change it back further. Eurovision na national concurso Atranca because
Just
it just rolls
Atlanta,
off the
yes.
tongue.
Oh, it's so easy. Honestly, add a mission statement to it. Turn it into Poland 2.0. Uh, um, if you're going to keep with the current format, make it all live because now also people are making decisions based on a pre-recorded version, which may or may not reflect what will be in the final. Um, Honestly, just go back to the old format. Like I had a blast with the Pabando Now editions. Um, and I just feel like everything from except for the production value, everything felt to me like it took a small step backwards this year. I was, well, there were 15 non-qualifiers that I liked, so roughly like half of all the entries this year. I did not feel as strongly for most of them as I did for a solid chunk of last year's entries. Like last year, there were genuinely some songs I loved and some artists I kept up with afterwards, and now it's more like mostly artists I know that I'm going to keep up with. There's no one that I'm like, oh, I want to know more from you, which is also what these national finals are for, especially in the Baltics in general. They're organized as a let's introduce these artists to our national public and potentially international audience. Um, but I at least the genre variety is there, so keep that up. It just roll it back to the old format. I was fine with that. There was nothing wrong, but I appreciate the attempt at some experimentation.
I think one of the things I absolutely want them to confirm is whether or not how many semifinals they're going to have before the show starts, or a few like just before the show starts, because the whole thing, oh yeah, we might have four, we might have five, like
You
you,
can only do that if you pull San Marino and say like we have a minimum of 20 artists and then just show up with 128. Like if you do that, it's fine. But
yeah, it's
otherwise,
just. it just feels too ad hoc, and I feel what was good about Pamando Schnaujo is it was very structured, which Lithuania had not had that history of like a properly good, well structured. This is what's happening, um, because in the past you've had like wild things like the lucky dip to see which jury votes actually like are valid on it. Like look back at the voting for 2017, absolute chaos, one of the best example national finals, which is fun to watch, but for producing a good national final, like it's not the same thing. I need to see the change in the voting system because it's so bad. Lithuania, I love you, but it's so bad. What also I really is annoying me is last year, yeah, it was probably the best Lithuanian selection we've ever had in terms of songs coming in. This year it was a lot weaker, but you had like interval jurors in there, and just thinking while reading this, while watching the show, why are they not there? Why are these people not submitting songs? What if you're getting them to be interested into the show? Why are they not submitting? You have different countries that have different streams. They have like an open submission, but they'll also have ones where they look and they look out for certain acts, and like they want some established ones. Why are they not being brought in? You can have a real mix of great talent there, and it's just not there. I think it was already touched on when we said we're talking about Luktelk, but what do you think it's realistically is going to far? I think it's absolutely qualifying for me. Like it's Lithuania when the UK, Poland, and Ireland are voting. They're getting the votes to qualify.
Something would have to go very wrong for it not to qualify. That being said, it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but something it would be surprising, definitely. I'm just quickly looking at the semi-final, especially because we only just got the running order the other day, so I haven't memorized it yet. It's I mean it's early in the show, but it's on an okay spot. And in general, like with the reorganization of the semi-finals, who even knows how anything's going to pan out anymore? Um, EBU get in the bin, honestly. I'm sorry, but honestly, ugh. That being said, then in the final, a lot depends on who qualified, especially from semi-final two, which has a lot more of stuff that could compete for
Mhm.
voters, but both tele and jury for this. I would say, um, people coming from different directions could all like split into different things from semi-final two, especially. But I would expect sort of a mid-table finish is where I would expect it. So somewhere between 12th and 18th, roughly. It could overperform, in which case I would say like seventh, eighth, Gustav range of points as well. Or if it underperforms, it could struggle. Like it could have gone through on televote and then just see most of its voters go to other songs and the jury not really respond to it if the performance isn't quite there.
See,
And then
what I
we
was actually thinking was
But yeah,
it
the
can it
mid-table.
can qualify, its voters go away, but I think there might be still a jury vote to at least like a fair amount of like mid-table jury votes to like keep it steady. I'm thinking at a minimum 20th. I think it would definitely be out the top, like the bottom six.
Unless something shocking happens,
Unless
yeah.
yeah, unless absolutely like because it's Euro 24, we have no idea what's happening with anything here.
San Marino winning
Maybe
with a
sort of
record number
like
of points.
San Marino coming top 10 is a very strong possibility. But yeah, I can think of maybe coming 10th if normal, if they absolutely pull out the bag of the staging, which they sometimes can do. Um, it can finally be the best finishing Lithuanian entry. But yeah, those are our thoughts. Thank you so much for listening to us ramble about Lithuania fan for a second year in a row. And Angus, I will see you next year when we're doing the recap of this one again.
Looking forward to it.
Um, we have been at Eurovision site. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Tumblr, and Threads,
And
where we will be,
TikTok.
and TikTok, where we'll be leading all of we will be
We'll talk about everything Eurovision 2024 and beyond, from like the run up to it to everything beyond that. I'm working on a music roundup again at the moment, so depending on when this goes out, it's either just out or about to come out. So if you want to keep up on all new Eurovision related releases, this might come out as a podcast episode, maybe not, but that Euro podcast where you have a lot of Euan and Angus ramblings and also other people rambling is also to follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and is available on your favorite podcast apps direct via the site, and especially also very much Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Yeah, don't forget to visit just the main site, that eurovisionsite.com, because you're probably not watching this there. And there's a
especially
lot of
because
good
we will
stuff
be
there.
at the pre-parties as well, so we'll have content interviews and a lot more from there as well.
So many interviews.
So many. A lot of them will be featuring Angus as well.
Indeed, because I'll be in Amsterdam.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you so much for viewers for watching just today, and hope you have a lovely evening. Bye.
Bye.